So, welcome back, everybody. Human and four-legged friends, thank you for coming back, and I hope you enjoyed your coffee break, a little exploring around. There's more to explore at lunchtime, so that's all to come. A couple of things to tell you. The questions that you were sending in were brilliant. We were getting loads of questions, so keep them coming during the panel discussions, during the day. Keep them coming in through your iPads. An important thing to tell you is that your questions will be anonymous from now on, unless you put your name at the end or your organisation. So if you're happy for us to name you, write your question and put your name at the end and the organisation you represent, and then we will say who the question's coming from. The other thing to mention is that the issues we are discussing are getting out there. In the stratosphere, they are being debated and questioned. So tweets are going through, people are putting it on Facebook. So let's keep that going. It's really important. If you are on Twitter, as we say, the hashtag is We Are Better With Pets. And the handle, which is the @ sign, for those of you that are new to Twitter this morning, the handle is Purina UK. And I think it must be Ireland. So use that as the Twitter handle. If you're mentioning Purina itself, Purina UK is the way we're getting it out there. Other Purina zones are retweeting, so it's getting out there. The conversation is being talked about. And the other thing to mention is the YouTube channel. Those who are watching us live right now, you'll also be able to watch this in playback through the YouTube channel. And that is going to go up on Twitter. And we will also make sure that everyone here in this room is able to get that YouTube address. We would have put it up on the boards for you here, up on the screens, or given it to you. But as you can imagine, with a YouTube link, it's pretty long. So it's probably much easier that we somehow get it to you electronically, and we'll probably send it via your iPads that you have logged into with your email addresses. We can get that to you later. So moving on, it's time to share a short film with you. And I want you to do something. I want you to imagine that tomorrow, every single thing that you took for granted, physically, mentally, was taken away from you. It suddenly changed, something physical, something mental. Your ability to walk, for example. Imagine how your life would probably just change in an instant. Imagine that happening to you. And for millions of people across the world, but particularly across Europe, which is what we're talking about, that is a reality that they are facing. And many will believe that there is little they can do. Their independence is gone. Their idea of who they were, their whole identity has gone in a flash. But now put a dog into that picture, a companion, a partner, with the ability to change your life for the better, to give you back that person you were, or the person that you feel you are in your inside. That is what the people and the dogs of Canine Partners are all about.
This is Canine Partners, where we train assistance dogs for disabled people. A canine partner changes somebody's life profoundly.
This is Whiskey, and we've been partnered for 3.5 years now. They did an amazing job because he fits my lifestyle perfectly. It's not just the fact that he can go and get the phone when it rings, it's also a companionship, it's also a feeling of being a part of society again. It was very difficult to lose my career. It changed everything for us. I lost my house and I lost my identity, and Canine Partners was the light. It gave me back the opportunity to meet new people, to get out and to give something back. My son's 18 now. For the last 10.5 years, he's known me as sick. It was really important for me that my son remained my son. I did not want him to become my carer. So having Whiskey has enabled myself and my son to have that wonderful relationship. I can never repay that. So I give talks and I fundraise now because people need to understand that these dogs change lives.
It's uplifting, and I hope that's what we're going to get out of the next panel discussion. It's called People and Pets, a One Health approach. And many of you here are well aware of the health benefits that people and pets bring to each other. It's a mutual, symbiotic thing. But how can we find ways to share and promote these benefits with others? Because that's what it's all about today. And that's just one question we hope our panellists can shed some light on. If you've got your own question, do remember, get that iPad out and send it to us, or share your thoughts on Twitter. We are Better with Pets. Let's get the discussion going, though. So let's welcome our panel to the stage. Clinical animal behaviour specialist, Professor Daniel Mills, is here today. Thank you, Daniel. Head of unit within the Directorate General for Health and Food Safety at the European Commission, Andrea Gavinelli. Director of World Animal Protection in Europe, Ruud Tombroek. And Vice President of the Institute for Interdisciplinary Research on the Human-Animal Relationship, Andrea Meisser. And moderating this discussion, I leave you in the very capable hands of the head of Nestlé Purina's Product Technology Centre. She's come all the way from St. Joseph, Missouri, Dr. Kay Dowling. Thank you, Kay.
Thank you. So good morning. My panelists and I are very excited to bring to you a conversation this morning about the One Health initiative, and particularly because the first panel did such a great job of setting up for this discussion. I hope you agree with me. What we thought we'd do, first of all, though, is ground everybody in a definition, and the definition coming up on the screen is actually one from the AVMA. So One Health is the integrative effort of multiple disciplines working locally, nationally and globally to attain optimal health for people, animals and the environment. And now I'd like to invite Andrea Gavinelli from the European Commission to give a perspective from Europe.
Yes, thank you. To keep it in a sort of historical sketch, the concept of One Health came in the EU institution in 2007, 2008, at the moment of the avian influenza scare. And it brought the concept of prevention and the concept of eradication of disease through the cooperation of humane and veterinarians, humane doctors and veterinarians. And that was because of the start of the concept of the fact that 60% of the pathogens that are transmitted to humans are coming from animals. So it comes from a very medical concept in the European institution, and the approach was led by this philosophy.
Thank you. So the main question that we want to address today is, could we advance the One Health approach around the role of pets in society? So that's the main question for our panel today, and if so, why and how? So I think building on our colleagues from the first panel, we are all of us in the belief that pets and people have benefits if it's together. But one of the questions that was raised this morning is, where have we got good examples, and where can we cite particular examples from research that help us promote this idea? So maybe I can ask Andrea to address that question.
The first panel was talking about One Health without ever mentioning One Health. And that was great. They were working together to find solutions for the mutual health of people and animals in their environment. And that's what it's all about. And I think I'm convinced that this is a key to answer many of the questions that have been raised in the first panel. And it's the key to bring the idea of the human-animal bond forward. We need evidence. This is clear. We get evidence. We have more and more better and better studies. It's a bit a question on how to publish them and where to publish them. But just to mention one example, we had recently a study from Lisa Woods in Western Australia. She could really show that persons get into contact with each other much better when they had a dog or another pet. And she could prove that they could invest on social capital through their pet. And having heard that we get older and older, that the risk of not always having a wonderful and beautiful aging process, but that we could get lonely, that we could fall into depressions, that we lose our social capital, our social network, leads to the fact that we really need to use this evidence on what pets can do. And One Health also means that we should enable these partnerships, that we should enable pet keeping. We need architects, we need urban planners, we need policy makers, we need better regulations. That's all a One Health approach to better discuss these facts in order to get a better health for animals and their people.
Daniel, do you have something to share on the same topic?
Yes, so we've been looking some time now at pets and their role in people with autism. And just to put it in context, autism, it's estimated, affects 0.5% or up to 2% perhaps of the population in the UK, and I suspect it's the same for every other country. And perhaps a more frightening statistic is that in the UK, amongst adults with a diagnosis of autism, 85% of them are unemployed. So there's an enormous drain on public resources. There are autism assistance dogs, and I know the next panel is going to talk about the assistance dogs, but we got interested in this and looking at some of the benefits that those dogs provided and wondered, actually, could the pet dog provide some of these benefits? And because clearly we can't meet the demand for specifically trained dogs. So we've undertaken a longitudinal study and come up with some quite remarkable effects. There were effects that we very much expected on the child, so reductions in anxiety, particularly separation anxiety and social anxiety. And we've known for quite a while, that dogs play an important role in providing social support. But the other really big effect was actually on the parent or guardian of the child. And we know there's, again, a big issue with people giving up work when they've got a member of the family who is disabled. And what we saw was that those parent levels of stress went from being excessive to normal for a parent. That doesn't mean they're not stressed. They're still a parent, and there's still that element. So, we're recognizing the breadth of the effects, and we've just actually finished a 3-year follow-up, and those effects are being sustained 3 years on. So it's more than just a novelty effect of getting a puppy or getting a dog into the home and a distraction. It's clearly something that seems to have a sustained effect. And again, I think it's important to emphasize from a One Health approach, we're now just about to embark on a study looking at the welfare of these dogs in these families, because that has been a concern for some people, that how do the dogs cope? In our previous studies, we saw no evidence that these dogs were at higher risk of any problems, but we've got specific funding to look at that as well.
And Ruud, maybe I could ask you to give us your perspective on One Health from an animal welfare point of view.
Sure, and let me start by expressing a huge thank you to Purina for organizing this event. It's great to have all these people together in the same room, and it's 11:15, and it's already a great day, so thank you. So to get to your question, we estimate that there are approximately somewhere between 500 and 700 million dogs in the world. And many of these dogs are owned, but the majority is living on the street or living partly on the street. So free roaming dogs, we call them. And they always live quite close to communities where people live. And usually that is in a very good harmony. And that's where you see the benefits, so companionship, but also security, for example, protection of livestock. What we see is that things like, for example, an outbreak of rabies can happen that severely damage that good harmony there is. Because what happens is that you get an increase in the biting incidents. People get bitten, people get ill, children get ill, people die, and people get feared, get scared of dogs. So, and what many people, including governments, do then is, well, we need to get rid of the problem, so let's get rid of the dogs. So you could say a approach that is very much focused on the public, the human health element only. We have seen again and again that is not the solution. This does not work. Within a few years, the dog population is back at its old size, and rabies is still there. What does work is an approach, a full cycle of activities, varying from vaccinating dogs, registration activities, neutering of dogs, but also education programs aimed at children, the introduction of responsible dog ownership, to things like waste management, making sure that dogs do not have access to garbage belts. That approach, where I would say that is a One Health approach, addressing both human health and animal health, that approach works.
Mm-hmm. One of the questions that came up repeatedly with the first panel was evidence, and what research evidence do we have to support this concept of One Health? Maybe I could ask you to talk a little bit more about some of the evidence that we have, and to give an opinion as to whether you think we need more evidence. Andrea?
Yeah, one of the key issues of One Health is creating added value for the health. And creating added value can also mean safe health costs. And that's one way we should follow, and one way which has a great potential, as has been said in the first panel. There are very few health economic studies so far. We just had one from Habry in the US that said that pet keeping saves $11.7 billion per year in health costs. And there is a well-known study and quite often cited study by Grabka and Hede. They could say that in Australia and Germany, people who own a pet make 15% less doctor visits per year. And this is something you can rely upon, and this is evident. And based on these facts, we try to calculate the figures for Switzerland, and we found out that every dog in Switzerland saves the health system of Switzerland 663 Swiss francs per year, which is about 610 euro. And we even calculated the 24 Swiss francs per dog per year that is caused by dog-related injuries and accidents. We deducted these 24 Swiss francs. And this is also important. So if we take it together, it's about 300 million Swiss francs per year. If we also take the cat population into account, we become close to 1 billion per year, and there we are at the figure that must be taken as serious even by policymakers. And this is the way to go, and I'm convinced that we really have possibilities to show these figures. We need more data, we need more evidence, but I think this is really impressive, and this is a One Health way to go.
Daniel, I think you have some examples from the UK.
Yeah, so I mean, we've done a similar sort of exercise to the one that Andrea and Hedy and colleagues have done in the past. And we decided we'd be even more cautious. We'd say there's a 10% effect rather than 15%. We also assume that there'd only be effect on one person in the family. And just taking that very conservative approach, we come up with a figure very close to £2.5 billion a year that it's saving the NHS, which is a massive figure. We hear a lot, I think, in the press about the problems of dog ownership, the drain they can be on the NHS. That's about 3 million. That's 1,000th of what we're talking about, dog bites and strikes. we hear a lot, and I'm not belittling these injuries by any means. You know, every injury is a tragedy. Postal workers, they get bitten, whatever, but and they talk about the cost of that to the economy. It's about 400,000 a year. So, you know, 3 billion set against these numbers, clearly it's a very positive sum. But you mentioned, you know, the importance of the evidence base and what is the quality, and I think there's two issues here that we need to tease out here. First of all, we do need to acknowledge these costs, and we need to make sure that we have responsible ownership to minimize those costs. And there's a lot of work to be done there. But the second thing I think that we need to consider in this equation is, whilst we might not have as much evidence as we like, we have to ask the question of, what are the consequences of the assumptions we make? If we make the assumption that we don't have the evidence and so there's no effect, then what is the cost of that? Or we make the assumption that, well, maybe these figures aren't spot on, but actually clearly there's something there, so we should perhaps err on that side. What are the consequences there? And, you know, there's displays here about, you know, reading to children. We know that in the UK, illiteracy costs the UK economy £2 billion a year. We've got the issue of people who give up work to care for individuals who have various problems. That's estimated to cost the UK economy £5 billion a year. These are massive figures, quite apart from the healthcare savings. This is just sort of lost hours. So I do think that when we look at this issue, I don't think it's right that people say, well, the evidence isn't very strong, we should carry on. Because actually there's an enormous case to say we need to be paying attention to this. Assistance dogs, it's estimated, probably provide about 100 million into the UK economy as a service, regardless of any economic impact that that has by enabling the person to return to work. And again, taking the example of autism, we know that there's a number of adults with autism who, if they can have their dog with them, they can hold down their job. And again, you know, there's all these hidden costs. And whilst we might not have the exact figures, and we can, and people can criticise, saying, well, you know, the evidence isn't that strong, I think the danger of ignoring it is a far greater problem.
So, Ruud, I think you've used evidence in a different way, again, looking from an animal welfare perspective. Could you share some of your perspective?
Yeah, I think that when you look at our approach, and at a red thread in everything that we do, because obviously different situations require different measures. Then that red thread would be partnerships with organizations, with governments, with corporations. Many of the challenges that we are facing cannot be solved by just one NGO or one corporation or one government. We have to work together on that. To give you a very concrete example, we are working in Costa Rica at the moment. There's quite a substantial stray dog population in Costa Rica. There have been a couple of, and all in good harmony until a few years ago. There were a couple of biting incidents, and people turned very, very hostile towards the dogs. So what we are now doing is we are starting to work with local municipalities on introducing responsible dog ownership and educating children using the 5 keys to dog bite prevention that we developed. Those keys are tips, very, very easy, like don't disturb a dog when he's eating. When you approach a dog, do it slowly and quietly, that kind of tips. Those tips have been tested extensively by the World Health Organization. And the WHO is now endorsing that approach, which obviously works very well when you start talking to local municipalities, when you can say, well, WHO has tested this works. They are very much in favor of doing that. So what you see now is that the first results are coming in, and that attitude, that hostility towards dogs is now turning into an awareness that there is something about the human behavior component there as well. That it's not that much the dogs that do things, but it's triggered by human behavior. So we all can do something about that.
So there's one way that we can all approach the One Health a little differently, and that's discussing with our colleagues, not just in the veterinary profession, but in the medical profession. Yeah. And I know you, Daniel, you've had the opportunity to publish some of your research in the human health literature. Can you tell us what response you got?
So, yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting experience because it's actually been quite a challenge, I think, with some of the health journals. And I think there's two important factors that influence and the sort of receptiveness, especially with the publication, but also with generating funds from health providers of funding. The first is, this is an emerging field, so it's very difficult to compete on equal terms with well-established scientific principles with sort of antibiotic resistance, for example. You know, we understand what's happening at a molecular level there. And so I think there's that issue, that there needs to be a recognition that this is really important, but we're at a much earlier stage. So we need to understand where we are in the knowledge generation process. I think also this is perhaps more a public health type issue than a sort of traditional medical issue. Because the second point that we come up against is sometimes with medics, a failure for them to understand the nature of the intervention. In public health, people are used to these very complex relationships between factors having global sort of impacts on different populations. Whereas medics perhaps have been more traditionally thought about, this is the intervention for this condition. And a dog is not a simple intervention in that. It's not like taking a drug or anything like that. Dogs and cats are incredibly adaptive. They work really hard to fit in with us. And actually the intervention is not the dog or cat, it's the relationship that develops between the animal and the owner. And not just the owner, but the wider family as well. And therefore we might have several different mechanisms operating at one given time. So to try and construct an experiment that focuses on just one mechanism is a bit of a fallacy. And until I think we get wider recognition of that, it's going to be, it's going to continue to have a little bit of a struggle. Just to give an example of that, the work that we recently published on autism, this work, we wrote it up and we explained that the work was looking at families that were thinking about getting a dog who had an autistic child in the family. And they were given a bit of pre-counselling advice about perhaps expectations and what to do. And we saw these very dramatic effects, as I said, on both the carer and the autistic child. We published the work, and very soon afterwards, there was a criticism by a group saying, you can't claim that dogs are good for children with autism. The evidence isn't strong enough. So we wrote another reply saying, we've not made that claim. But they've just seen the word dog and reacted like that. And taken, and actually misrepresented our own work. But we are actually in the situation where you've got families with an autistic child who are thinking about getting a dog. And at the moment, as far as I can tell, the predominant view of the medical profession and healthcare professionals is the last thing you want is a dog in your life. Well, actually, it might be the first thing you want in your life if you're properly prepared for it. And it's understanding those subtleties, I think. We're not saying that a dog is good for everyone. My background is in clinical animal behavior. I spent a lot of my life sorting out problematic relationships. I know that not every relationship works. But if you set things up right, you set the expectations, and people are committed, there are enormous benefits to be had.
So, Andrea, from a regulatory perspective, typically the conversation tends to revolve around the negatives rather than the positives. And you mentioned that earlier. Maybe you could elaborate a little on how things are changing and how the dialogue is changing.
Yes, I was listening, fascinated by the previous and this panel and this debate, because in fact, from the policy-making perspective, from the governance perspective, the challenge is huge, because it needs to call upon a policymaker with an holistic approach, look into data that are even between boundaries of their own policy competence. There is the blending also of concepts like that I liked it very much, the positive wellness concept that is never been embedded in the One Health at the same time. Sometimes with the pretextuous idea that we are giving no science-based motivation to politicians to act, some other are risk-based and financial assessment that is done. Currently, I think the impact assessment on the positive aspects, that normally is the process to get into a political decision, is not being done nearly anywhere in the European Union in these things. And very few governments have acted on this, in this area. So already we start with the idea that we know only the tip of an iceberg of many possible initiatives that could be even a local and regional level coming into it. The fact is that also concrete example, and then now watching this beautiful dog resting there, show, coming to concrete example that even an hotel could open up the door to dogs and making this issue, this interaction even easier, because we talk about pets and the pets are here, so inspire us. I have to be brought to policymaker. I'm there since years in doing policies on animals and humans, and of course I have to say this is a personal thinking, of course, but the last thing I would like to do is having always this negative approach to it. The fact that I have to be in the prevention scare crisis mode all my time, instead of building up bridges and having this holistic possibility for the future. That's for me is the promising situation of today when we talk about One Health with this perspective, because we never talk about this blending, as I said, with this wellness concept.
I think we have some questions coming in from our audience. I'm asked to encourage you all to submit your questions via the iPad. I have a few here that we can answer. I think there's also some people in the audience who wanted to actually give their questions live. No? Okay. Nobody's brave enough to hold the microphone. So, first of all, one of the questions that seems to be a theme that's coming up is people recognize that dogs are good for people. So there's no question about that. But how can we teach people to be good for dogs and that they're not merely a tool for us? So I think that's getting at the whole idea of responsible pet ownership and how we develop that in the community. So would one of you like to take that question?
I can kick off, seeing as
Okay.
I often sometimes have to pick up the pieces. I think one of the important things, from a strategic point of view, I think historically we focus on giving people information. But actually, people operate at a very emotional level. And, you know, as much as we might not like it, we're not totally logical. We can be if we really make the effort. But most of the time, we take an easy path and we just go a lot with our feelings. And I think what is important if we're going to encourage responsible ownership is that we recognize the emotional engagement that people have and that these issues are not going to be solved just by information. There's some quite nice work going on in Denmark at the moment where they looked actually at people's bond with different types of dog. And they looked at these dogs with very short noses that have breathing problems and, compared to dogs of similar size and features. And what they found was that the owners of these short-nosed dogs had much stronger bonds. Now, we know that there are things like some of the facial features that intuitively bring out sort of nurturing instincts in us, the high forehead, the big eyes, short, stubby legs. But perhaps more worryingly, there's now starting to become evidence to suggest that the difficulty that these dogs have in breathing also plays on our heartstrings, and we feel that we're needed. And so people are being attracted to these dogs because they are having difficulty, and that is a welfare problem. And I've said this a few times, I absolutely adore pugs, but I could never buy one. I'd be considered such a hypocrite. I have 2 life-size pugs in my office as models. That gives you my pug dose. They're great characters, but there is a real welfare problem in that breed from that point of view. So we've got to develop better strategies, I think, to recognize that, not think that it's an entirely logical or people don't have the information or they're in denial, but actually understand the emotional relationship and use those sorts of strategies to encourage responsible ownership.
Andrea, did you want to add some comments to that?
I just wanted to say from a One Health perspective, it's clear that the health of the animals counts as much as the health of people, and we need to work together in all fields to enable it. And the other thing is we need more money to better educate people, and bringing the human-animal bond to a higher level of support also helps going further with education. So it's sort of a circle.
Yes, self-circle. So, Ru, do you like to make a comment?
Yeah, I very much agree with what Daniel said on the emotional part, but I think the situation in the various countries in the world varies quite a lot, right? So the situation in a country like the UK is very different from the situation that we are working on in a country like Romania, for example, where you have to get into the basic knowledge first, like. So we're working with education packs there now, saying things like, well, dogs have feelings too. They can experience pain. Give them proper food, that kind of stuff. So I think I agree, but it's obvious that you need to face the situation that is in front of you.
Yeah, I think there's a very strong cultural element to any of this advice. It's got to be adapted.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a comment that's come in from someone online who's listening to what we're all saying. This person's offering a comment. We have 5 dogs. My son is 10 and is out and about in all weathers, which is rare amongst his peers. We rarely visit the doctor, apart from breakages or usual requirements. It helps us. We don't have to take time off work, which is good for our employers, and we stay relatively fit and healthy. I believe that our pets help us in so many ways, and health is just one of them. And I think we all would agree with that comment. So.
It's exactly the sort of thing you hear again and again.
Yeah. I think we are looking at health in a very broad way, right? So not just physical health, mental health, very much connected to welfare.
So one of the other questions that's come in from our audience is, emphasizing the benefits of pets towards society is absolutely fantastic, but don't you think there's a risk of instrumentalizing them? And how do you see us doing it responsibly for the benefits of the pets as well? Someone brave enough to take that question?
I think it sort of picks up on the point that I was making, actually, that when people instrumentalize, in effect, they're looking at it very coldly in that very logical way. And there is a danger of that people, and I think there is a danger with a sort of, a very sort of, a society that has an attitude that you just dispose of things, when they're no use. You sort of get the latest model of the TV or something like that. So I do think we've got to make sure that people do recognize that actually owning a pet is not, like getting a TV. It is about a relationship. It is about commitment. And if you really want to get the best out of it, then you want to make that emotional commitment. And one thing you can be sure of about a dog or a cat is it's not going to cheat on you. So we heard in the last panel, the importance of friendship. Yeah. And I think that was a really good point, that people are using all these social media, but I don't think that people have as many friends, close friends, as they used to. They've got more social contacts, but that's not the same. And again, the sort of work that we saw with the children with autism, the thing that came back with this effect on separation anxiety, the world is a very scary place for an autistic child. It's a very scary place, I think, for most children. And if you know a dog you can talk to, you can interact with, as I said, and they're not going to betray you. And I think that is something which a lot of people are really craving for in their lives, whether they realize it or not.
So maybe I can pose a question for all of you to think about. We've talked very broadly about this One Health approach, but how can we move it forward? How can we make some momentum for this? And which particular groups or organizations do you see needing to get involved to turn this into a reality? Andre, you'd like to say something?
Thanks, Katie. Okay, it's very important, this issue of partnership that came out by not only multidisciplinary approach in science, but also part of the civil society that can join their experience. Because, as I said, we are in a primitive stage of knowledge, where even, in fact, access to scientific journal and interaction is difficult. Imagine when we are even in the risk of policy making with instrumentalization. Policy making could be an incredible, fantastic tool to get a sort of governance of this concept. As soon data will come into it. So it's really essential to get into a bunch of information that are bridging between economy, society and science, but it's clear something that could be handy and very easy to use for policymakers. That could be then the way to help. Isolated initiatives are already existing. We have a good experiment in many countries and governments around the world. We don't even have a platform to discuss about it really. That's why like today is very interesting. And that's where we can help, in my opinion.
So your colleagues on the panel who are in academia, maybe you'd like to comment.
Yeah, just in addition to what you said, we made very good experiences with regarding One Health as an umbrella, as a shelter under which we really can and are allowed to think out of the box. So we can move away from all the old paths. We can sort of try to forget our traditional roles and invent new things. And this is also interesting for policymakers because they have sort of a safe environment to think new ways. And I think this is important. This is really a highlight of One Health because it doesn't belong to anybody, so it doesn't take anything away from someone. It really is a new approach, an approach we haven't had so far, and this could open doors, not only on a very high level of FAO, WHO, but also together with the top-down approach, we need the bottom-up movement from the street to that we should create a desire for One Health and for One Health thinking. So all different projects are involved and everything's possible.
And you have a very good example in Switzerland where you have multiple stake owners involved in a One Health initiative.
We had a great opportunity to get a mandate from the government of the canton Basel-Stadt and to implement One Health on the level of the different departments. And this is a great experience. It's 5 years old, the project, and still running. It's a very dynamic process. Just to say what happens now, the urban gardener is regarding himself as part of the health system because he is furbishing and opening parks as meeting places for owners and their pets. Every decision that is being taken in the departments is scanned for its One Health ability. Are there other people who could work on this field? Are there other functions and other professions we need to get a good decision? That's just one of the stages, and I think this is a way to bring One Health into life. Right. So it's not only a strategy; it's something that really lives and works.
Yeah. Daniel?
I think no surprises here. As a researcher, I'm going to say we need to optimize the research potential here. And optimize means make the most of the opportunities that we've got in terms of both the volume of research but also the quality of the research. And different areas of this sort of subject matter are at different stages of maturity. As I said, we were very fortunate to get actually funding from the lottery to start that work with the autistic families, and it's resulting in a coherent body of work. There's been quite a lot of work now on the health benefits of walking with dogs, whereas some of the other fields are a much earlier stage of the research, and we need to recognise that. I think to pick up on the point that Andrea made earlier, that I do think we need to get policymakers and funders to recognise and move away from this sort of dealing with threats and fears and thinking about the sort of preventive health value of it and the optimization of resources. And it might be that the economic squeeze that we've got at the moment is an opportunity to sell that and say, you know what, we can save on some of these budgets if we were to take these sorts of strategies. So I am an optimist from that point of view, and I think there are opportunities there if we can get it translated into a way that people can understand. But also, sort of one of the things that's starting to emerge, I think, within health much more is this idea of individualized medicine. So the idea that everybody is fairly unique. We recognize the diversity and different things work for different people. So people are doing genomics and looking at different drugs working with different individuals. And actually, pets are a wonderful individualized medicine because they're not set in a physical form. They're very adaptable and can quite often meet the individual needs of very diverse populations. So I do think there's an opportunity there as well.
We've had a couple of questions come in, which have just disappeared off my iPad. But I think I could remember it. It's asking for you, Andrea, about the whole zoonotic approach, which has typically been where the policymakers have been. Maybe as part of your summary, you could talk about how that One Health approach is really changing.
But in fact, as I said, the starting point and the bell of a joint approach between human health and animal health came into the moment of the big risk of pandemics as the avian flu. And in fact, it was like forcing these two parts of the world to start to interact. When I mean the two types of medicines, interact closely to develop a crisis management plan. Now, if we think about today the fact that, for example, we have a society that is in search of positive values, and we are in search of savings from the point of view of budgets everywhere, even in health. And I look from the real health directorate. So the fact is the two compartments could really cooperate to help to solve this equation, because we don't have an algorithm, we don't have any algorithm today that could transpose in a policy action this perception of we could be saving, having better life, and giving to Europeans, in our case, because I speak about union, but it's larger, this concept, we can give their positive thinking of what we do.
I have a question that's come in from someone in the audience. It says, we focused a lot on dogs. And as a cat owner, I believe cat's interaction, albeit different, has the same benefits to well-being improvement that we've been talking about. Is there any view from the panel and any examples you can share on cats?
Yeah, there are examples. There's not as much work in cats as there is dogs. And they are different. And, again, it's not that a cat is not a small dog. And they are very different. They suit different people, different lifestyles, etc. But we know that things like, the interactions that you have with cats. In fact, we just did a TV program where, people were interacting with their pets, and they get this surge of oxytocin, which is the bonding thing that makes us feel really good. And as part of that program, they looked at it in cats as well for the first time. And sure enough, you get the same effect with cats. There's some quite nice work in the dogs that shows it's actually the eye gaze, that mutual exchange of gaze, that seems to be quite critical for that process. So there's no reason, in fact, looking in a cat's face is probably easier than a dog's some of the time. Because dogs can take that as threatening, whereas cats tend not to. So there's quite a lot of work on purring and its calming effects on people. So that's something very unique to cats. So.
Anyone else have something to share on cats? Oh.
I own a cat.
You have a cat, okay. Maybe the answer is we need more work on cats. Maybe that's the answer to this. So in summary with my panel, I think what we've been able to do is kind of broaden the discussion about, it's not just about the health of people, but it's also about the health of pets. And I think there's quite a lot of opportunities that have been shared as to where there are areas where we have work to do. I don't think we are again, at a point where we know everything that we need to know about this One Health approach. We have some great examples of where we're making strides in the medical literature with things that are going on in communities. And of course, we're very happy that Andrea's here so he can hear from a European Commission perspective the passion that we all have for wanting these initiatives in the public discussion. So on behalf of all the audience, I'd like to thank the panelists, Daniel Mills, Andrea Gavinelli, Ruud Tombrek, and Andrea Meiser, for the great discussion we've had this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes?
Thank you. If you want to take your seats, then please do. Thanks so much. It's amazing to get the discussion going like that, and so much coming out of what's going on stage. And I want to thank you, Dr. Kay Dowling, as well, because your moderating was fantastic, very measured and considered. Thank you. A few questions are coming in that we can't answer all the time. We are obviously short of time. But there was a message came in from the CEO of the Moscow Academy of Veterinary Medicine. And this is what today is about, getting the conversation going. Fyodor Vasilevich, are you here in the room, Fyodor? Yes. Fyodor, thank you for your message. He's just here. Would you like to stand up? Can you stand up, please? Just so you know what he looks like, because he messaged in to say, from the Moscow Academy of Veterinary Medicine, pets are very beneficial for strengthening the human immune system. Our academy has a state-of-the-art laboratory where some research has already been done, and we would be happy to find partners and perhaps sponsors to carry on with that research. I know Purina has been involved. I've been reading up about it while the debate has been going up on the stage. Purina has been involved. But this is what it's all about, partnering up, getting the conversation going. So if anyone would like to have a chat with Fyodor, I'm sure he would really appreciate it. And this is where the system of being able to interact through your iPads is really helpful. Keep those conversations going. We're going to be breaking soon for lunch, but we've got a really important thing coming up. So we want to hear about the Nestlé Purina in Society commitments. There's only one man who's going to tell us all about it. Please welcome back Bernard.
So hello again, everyone. And I think we had a fantastic morning so far. Thank you so much to the participants in the 2 morning panels. Thank you to all of you for putting your questions forward. I think there were a lot of interesting conversations, a lot of exciting comments. I think we saw in both panels, we are just at the beginning of understanding better this bond between pets and people and its impact on our health and well-being. And it's incredible when you think that we have had pets around us for 20,000 years, and yet it's only in the last few years that we've really started understanding scientifically the bond, the nature of the bond, but also the impact it has on our health and well-being. After lunch, we'll have one more panel with a really exciting topic again, which is about dog-assisted therapies and activities. But now I'm here to announce something that is very much also in tune with pets' role in society, and this is our commitments of Purina in society. 10 commitments to pets and society that will shape and guide us for the next 10 years. These are 10 commitments to pets, to their owners, and society at large, about how we want to make, with your help, with your partnership, the world a better place for pets and their owners. These are not vague commitments. These are very specific commitments. And you and society should hold us account to our commitments. But we're not going to get there by ourselves alone. We will need, as I said, your participation. That is why we wanted to launch those commitments, not alone in a press room, but together with you in a forum like today. So our 10 commitments are very much an extension, an application of the core belief I was talking and referring to earlier, that when pets and people bond, life gets richer, that life is better with pets, that pets bring benefits to human health and well-being. And therefore, the purpose of Purina is very much to enhance the health and well-being of pets, of the people who love them, and of society at large. And our 10 commitments are there to further that purpose, all of which is fitting in our vision of Purina as being the most trusted pet care company in enriching the lives of the pets and the people who love them. Now, Purina is part of Nestlé, as you know, and Nestlé made already a few years back 38 commitments to be reached by 2020 to support our Creating Shared Value journey. I think you're all familiar with the concept of creating shared value, which is creating value for society as well as for shareholders. Now, our 10 own Purina commitments to society are complementing those 38 Nestlé commitments, but are specific to pet food. Now? Why are we launching those commitments today? Does that mean we're just starting about all these things we're going to talk about? No, of course not. We've been doing all of what I'm going to explain to you now for a number of years. But we thought we needed this rallying cry about our people, our partners, our suppliers, customers, and stakeholders around a set of clear objectives to deliver within a certain time frame with your help. To get there, we did a lot of engagement with you, our stakeholders, our partners. We've listened to you, we've engaged with you, considered with you what are the most important trends and issues in society today that are affecting pets and their owners. What we want is that you help us accelerating in delivering a greater impact together. So over the last years, we received a lot of feedbacks by talking and listening. You said we should be bold, make it big, think long-term, be ambitious. We heard this morning, the world is more and more connected, the more and more spent online. At the same time, it's becoming disconnected in a way from human experience. What is really the emotional richness of lives spent online? A question we saw in one panel this morning. Where is the joy? By the way, Joy is the name of my dog. And we chose with my wife that name because we have bilingual children speaking French and Russian, and we were looking for a very simple name that everyone could pronounce and easy to remember. But actually it was an amazing choice because the dog, who's been with us for 2 years, is bringing us so much joy on a daily basis. So this need for human-pets bond is more necessary than ever. So before we go into the details, how did we arrive at these 10 commitments? As I said, they're based on what you told us, and they're based on studies we've made. And we've identified, in particular, 4 material issues. So issues that matter to pets and their owners, that have an impact on pet care and on pets in society. You see them on screen here. These are the 4 material issues we've identified, and we'll take them one by one. The first one is that responsible pet ownership is under threat. So we've heard this morning about the trends like urbanization, single households, dual career households, shared and smaller properties, flats and apartments, the commuting, the time spent online, the decrease in disposable income, the aging trend. All of these trends mean it is harder to keep pets. But if we all believe, and I think we do all here, that the bond has benefits, then we should work all together to making it easier for people to own pets. And from this first material issue, you'll see a number of commitments from us on pets adoption, on pets at work, on responsible pets ownership education for children, on jobs opportunity for young people, on obesity prevention, and on pets nutrition and pets health research. Moving on to the second material issue, this is about the need for greater transparency, increased societal expectations from companies like us. So we understood through our dialogues and research that there are increased concerns about the food we eat, concerns about the ingredients, the sourcing of the ingredients, additives, colorants, ingredients, as I said, ethical, sustainable sourcing of the food. This is true for human food, but it is very true as well for pet food. So from this issue, you will see our commitments on things like delivering accessible product information and pet care advice to owners, or removing artificial colorants from our products. Moving on to the third one. Third one is about the scarcity of resources in a world where human needs may come into competition with pets. Now, the pet food industry has delivered great benefits over the years in making use of products that either were wasted or not present in the human food chain. Parts that humans would not want to eat, but yet are great sources of proteins for pets. So we're committed to lead the industry in pet nutrition and health research, among others, to be able to determine and define sustainable sources of proteins going forward that would not come into competition with human needs. At the same time, implement responsible and sustainable sourcing of our ingredients. The last material issue that matters, is about reducing the inputs we need for our processes and the volume of waste we produce. And this is very much in tune with the 38 commitments of Nestlé. This is not a nice to have. This is a must be. Our resources are finite. We need to minimize the impact we have and our activities have on the environment. And from this, you will see, for example, our commitment to improve environmental impact of our packaging. It's about reducing waste, use less packaging, promote recycling. So, those studies, those dialogues, the identification of those material issues have led us to the definition of the 10 commitments. But we can also group them, and you see them here, we can also group those 10 commitments into kind of two themes. The first group is about the way we do business as Nestlé Purina. It's about helping pet owners make informed choices, delivering superior nutrition. But it's also about minimizing our impact on planet resources. The second group is about maximizing our positive contribution on society, the value we create and share through focusing, in the case of Purina, on pets' well-being and pets' role in society. So you see the two groups. We're going to have a first look at the first group of 5 commitments. And we start with commitment number 1. We commit to leading the industry in pet nutrition and health research. This is about being trusted by pet owners for advice and quality of our products. It is about new products with superior nutrition, sharing research and encouraging innovation, driving up standards, advancing knowledge, creating pet food that will help pets live longer, healthier lives. So for this, we commit, among others, particularly to be measured, 16 new products that improve health of our pets by 2017. Commitment number 2, delivering accessible product information and pet care advice. We believe, as I said earlier, in consumers making informed choices. More than label compliance, we want to work with you, experts, nutritionists, regulatory authorities, industry bodies, so that owners can make the right choice. We want at all times to have relevant information for pet owners just one click away. So specifically, by 2018, we want to have easy-to-understand information, nutritional and pet care advice on all our packagings. Moving on to commitment number 3. It's about removing artificial colorants from all our products. As I said, people want their food free from artificial colorants. True for human foods, true as well for pet foods. So here we commit to take away all artificial colorants from our meals by 2020 and from our snack products from 2023. Moving on to the 4th commitment, it's about implementing responsible sourcing. We want the highest quality raw materials for our products, but we want them sourced in a sustainable way. We want product safety. At the same time, we want responsible and sustainable production and sourcing of plant-based ingredients as well as farm and wild animal ingredients. So for this, we commit specifically to have 100% traceability of our soya by 2017 and 100% sustainable sourced seafood ingredients by 2020. Moving to the 5th of our commitments, it is about improving the environmental performance of our packs. It's about reducing pack waste, optimizing the weight and the volume of our packs and packaging materials, promoting recycling, gradually eliminating unsustainable materials, replacing them by recycled and/or renewable materials. And specifically, we commit to avoiding the use of at least 3,000 tons of packaging materials by 2019. Now, that was the first group about the quality of our products, the quality of the nutrition, as well as minimizing the impact on planet resources. We're now moving to the second part, which is about maximizing the positive impact we can have on society. And the 6th commitment is about creating jobs and apprenticeships at Purina Europe. Now, this is part of a global Nestlé commitment that you may have heard of, which was this youth alliance we created with hundreds of other companies, but which Nestlé is leading in order to promote jobs for youth. The youth unemployment is clearly the #1 issue society faces in Europe, with up to 25% youth unemployment. Nestlé is committed to help easing the problem in partnership with the European Commission as well as a number of companies. Purina within Nestlé is committing specifically to create 1,500 additional jobs and traineeships for young people by the end of this year. Absolutely approved. Coming to the last 4 commitments, and these are about pets' health and well-being and the role of pets in society. Through collaboration and partnerships, this is not something we're going to do by ourselves. We're going to do it with your help. First 2 of the last 4, specifically about pets' health and well-being. As we've seen this morning and talked about, it is harder for people now to own pets, especially in the city, in those big cities. And at the same time, because of the issue of abandonment of pets, we have a lot of pets, and we saw it from Lucy also in case of catastrophic issues, natural causes, that need new homes. So when you put the 2 together, there is a clear need to promote pet adoption. I want first to have you look at one example of a recent partnership we have on pet adoption, in this case in Poland. Video, please.
W programie adopciaki.pl uczymy ludzi, którzy chcą adoptować zwierzaka, że zwierzę to nie jest tymczasowa rzecz. W zeszłym roku wyadoptowaliśmy 46 zwierząt. To jest super wynik w całym programie i nie mamy żadnych zwrotów, także wszystkie zwierzęta są szczęśliwe w nowych domach. Cały czas pozostajemy w kontakcie, otrzymujemy zdjęcia, informacje, jak się miewa nasz zwierzak.
To jest White. White trafił do mojego domu tymczasowego z hotelu. Wcześniej mieszkał w schronisku dla bezdomnych zwierząt. I u mnie w domu właściwie siedział 3-4 tygodnie. Zgłosiliśmy go do programu Adopciaki i zgłosiła się rodzina właśnie Kuba z Ewą i jakby od razu wiedziałam, że to są ludzie dla niego.
To było moje marzenie, mieć psa w domu.
Adopcja to jest najwspanialsza rzecz w życiu każdego człowieka i każdy powinien jej spróbować, bo zwierzę naprawdę bardzo zmienia patrzenie na świat.
So our commitment number 7 is about promoting pet adoption through partnerships, some of which basically are in this room. We want to change perceptions, help society see the value of pet ownership and the benefits for all. So we want to promote responsible pet adoption. And specifically we commit to have our top 10 countries, what we call markets, participating in pet adoption programs by 2023. So we have already a number of initiatives across Europe in big, small and medium-sized countries. We want at least to have the top 10, the 10 biggest countries promoting responsible pet adoption programs by 2023. Now, coming on to the problem of obesity, which we also touched upon this morning, we have indeed a growing problem of obesity for humans as well as for pets. We want to look at new ways to tackle this issue, more from a behavioral and attitudinal aspect. And I would like to invite you to hear from Dr. Tom Webb about obesity, attitude and behaviors in the next video.
Pets get fat because they eat more than they burn. Same reason humans get fat. The difference is that dogs and cats eat what they're given. They'll keep eating if you keep giving them food. Purina have gone beyond nutrition and they're now looking more broadly, and that's because dogs and cats don't live in isolation, they live with people. I'm an expert in how we change people's behaviour, and so if you want to change an outcome from the animal, you need to work with the owners and to understand that that's about changing their behaviour, not changing the animal's behaviour. So it's not just about providing nutritional solutions to the problem of pet obesity, it's about working with owners and coming up with strategies that they can use alongside nutritional strategies to manage the weight of dogs and cats. So the relationship between pets and people is really valuable and works in both directions. So our hope is that the interventions can work in that partnership and benefit both.
So our 8th commitment is to help reduce the risk of obesity through prevention programs. Obesity is the single biggest health issue, as we've seen this morning, both for humans and for pets. But at the same time, there's still a lot of progress to make to understand this issue, to see the link between the pet obesity and the human obesity issue. We know for sure there's too much food given at times to pets, including human food given to pets on top of the pet food. There's not enough exercise, both for the pets and their owners, and we thought we should focus on prevention as the quickest and safest way to have an impact, working on attitudes and behaviors, but partnering with associations. We are not going to achieve this on our own. So we are committed to have prevention programs in association with stakeholders in our 10 major countries by 2023. Moving on to the last 2 commitments that are about pets' role in society. We've heard this morning about the One Health approach, the power of the bond between pets and humans. I was particularly pleased and also surprised to hear from Andrea Meiser, for example, that a public gardener in a city can have an impact on health of pets and people. So this approach now opens up complete new fields to having pets' role in society recognized, but also studied to understand how people can live longer, healthier, happier lives with their pets. And here there are two key aspects, pets at work and pets with children. And we first look at an example of pets at work in the next video.
Drake è il mio cane, è un golden retriever di 11 anni. Ora con la possibilità di portarlo in ufficio devo dire che la mia vita è molto più semplice e soprattutto lui è molto più felice. Con il trasferimento nei nuovi edifici c'è stata la possibilità di fare in modo che anche la logistica potesse consentire proprio l'ingresso ai cani. Da quello che è il pavimento della reception, ai percorsi, agli ascensori, all'area adibita e alla caring room, dove abbiamo la possibilità appunto di avere gli snack, il cibo, l'acqua e tutto quello di cui i nostri cani hanno bisogno. I cani che hanno accesso ai nostri uffici sono tutti cani che hanno superato un patentino. Con questo patentino, che in realtà va a delineare la capacità del cane di comportarsi in maniera educata all'interno di differenti ambienti, di conseguenza per loro venire in ufficio diventa naturale. Apriamo le porte degli uffici ai nostri cani.
So here our 9th commitment is about promoting pets in the workplace. We are committed to support people to be able to benefit from ownership in the new world of the 21st century. We talked about the service industry this morning, the fact that work is changing. You can now work from home to a certain extent, but you still have, in very many cases, to go to a workplace, in many cases an office. And we have plenty of evidence that this is good. This is good for business, it's good for organizations, it's good for individuals. We heard about the oxytocin increase in people when they pet a dog next to their workplace. Well, we live this every day at Purina because we have quasi all of our offices now that are open for dogs, that are pet-friendly, and we can see every day the benefits, reducing stress, increasing team harmony, improving productivity, and reducing absenteeism. So there is a lot of benefits in the workplace from having pets. And we want to work with our partners to promote pets at work and reach 200 alliances, meaning having 200 companies on top of Nestlé Purina that promote pets in the workplace by 2020 across Europe. And now, moving on to our final commitment, which is about responsible pet ownership and children. And I want you to have a look at this example from Italy.
Io sono Paola da Funchio e sono un'istruttrice cinofila, quindi io mi occupo di educare i cani. Non bisogna fare così. Pet in School è un progetto che parte dall'idea di sviluppare una buona relazione con il mondo degli animali. I bambini devono imparare il rispetto verso i propri simili, verso un altro essere vivente.
Si deve tirargli la coda, che devi dargli da mangiare.
È stata veramente un'ottima idea prendere un cagnolino per Camilla, proprio perché per lei è diventato il suo compagno più stretto di gioco.
Facciamo salutare Purina, per cui effettivamente è un'azienda che ha una grande sensibilità sul fatto che l'animale fa bene. Pets in School è un progetto importantissimo. Questa è la bellezza del mio lavoro, vedere che comunque l'amore per gli animali vince sempre.
So our final commitment is about promoting responsible pet ownership, specifically towards children. We've seen we have ample evidence of the positive benefits for child well-being. We have one more panel this afternoon that will talk at length about this impact on children from having pets around. We want to help children feeling comfortable around pets. We want them to understand the needs and responsibility that come along with pets. These are great skills that they will be able to enjoy their whole life and hopefully will make them happy pet owners for the rest of their lives. So our ambition here is to educate 2 million children by participating in our Pets at School programs by 2023. So with this, we have described to you our 10 commitments. This is a new adventure, and I want all of Nestlé Purina, but all of you with us, to embrace this adventure. We want together to change the way society views pets and promote responsible pet ownership. But as I said, we need you, we need your help. In the next 2 hours after lunch, you'll have a chance to engage and collaborate, learn from our programs, the programs we support. But in the future, we will support even more programs in order to achieve our commitments. Please give us feedback. Tell us where to focus, where to put the needle. Together, we will be achieving more. Now we've shared our commitments. As I said, we want to be held accountable for them. We want you and society to judge us by our results. But we also would like to ask for a commitment from you. We all love animals. We're all pet lovers. We want all a better society. And guess what? We've seen, and we're seeing every day, that the two things are linked and interwoven. Because when people and pets bond, life gets richer. Life is better with pets for all of us. Thank you very much.
Bernard, thank you. I was just trying to tweet and Facebook a picture of the responsibilities we have to bring our children into this discussion and to bring them into schools. And I'm hoping my son's headmistress will be watching my Facebook page, and we will get the conversation going around a bit of Portugal as well. So thank you for that. Those commitments are truly inspiring, and let's hope we can stick to them and we can all get the conversation going around them. Just before we head off to lunch, a reminder of that final panel that begins at 2:30 this afternoon, Animal-Assisted Activities and Therapy. You can find out a lot about it during the experiential zone area that we're going to go through over lunch. And I would really encourage you to go in there. It's going to open up shortly, and there's plenty for you to do and see in there. As well as grabbing that much-needed bite to eat, you can explore these zones that are open right here at lunchtime. So we've got Together for Health, which is all about nutritional innovations that have made a difference to pets' lives and the health benefits of you having a pet. We've got Together for Children and the Young, and this is all about responsible pet ownership and how we get that instilled into young minds. Together for Life, this is all about pets at work, basically, which we've been hearing about this morning. But you have the opportunity there to talk to people who have done it and can give you advice on that. Lots of information, too, on Pets for Life, adoption programs that Purina support. And there's a fascinating Read Your Pet section where there's a thermal imaging camera. We put sensor monitors on the dog and the human, and you can detect each other's emotional states, stress, excitement, that kind of thing. So you can experiment with that and with the dogs. So basically a whole area of experimentation for us to explore over lunch and to give us some inspiring context, the flesh on the bones of what we're talking about today. It is, though, time for lunch now, I think you'll be glad to hear. Do head back towards the reception area, and from there you can follow the signs directly to where we're eating. If you have a pet with you today, please just get in touch with the pet ambassadors. Those are the people wearing red T-shirts here. They will look after your pet during the lunch break, because unfortunately they're not allowed into the dining area. And could I just ask all members of the press to remain here for just a couple of minutes? We will escort you to the media round table. Thank you. Enjoy your lunch. We will see you back here at 2:30.